Good afternoon, everybody. It's Lorraine Alternative Homesteading. It's May 22nd, 2025, and we're just going to get back to our regular business, and I'm going to read a book. I'm going to continue reading where I left off about the criminal fraternity, Servants of the Lie, by Saul Esprit. Servant of the Truth of Jesus Christ. Now, this is a great book, by the way. It's hard to find. But the last paragraph that I read was about attorneys, prostitutes, and three-piece suits. So I read a little bit about that on one of my live chats, probably a couple of months ago. And now this is a paragraph within that heading about what about justice? But before I get into it, please remember to hit the thumbs up. It helps the channel grow, get the message out there. And I want to make a comment on a video that I just watched by David Atkinson, about how he was approached by somebody to do something like record a video or partake in events or whatever. And he decided against it because it was in the best interest of the community. He didn't want to associate with it. Well, I'm going to raise my hands up, because I, too, was approached, and I have no interest in partaking in what I feel is a fraudulent and not in the best interest. I do not want to associate with this person. You know, back in 2017, when I found the community, obviously I've been targeted since before 2012, maybe 2009. So anyway, when I came into the community in 2017, and I'll just go through this quickly and then get on to my reading, I couldn't wait to tell somebody who understood about what was going on with me. You know, of course, I spoke to my mother about it. She said, "Oh, you mean you're going to be a Manchurian candidate?" It's like, where did my mother come up with this stuff? You know, she watches too much TV. But no, it's true. Like, she knew my mother knew what was going on before I did. So, anyway, I found out, I realized that I was, quote unquote, a targeted person or on a watch list or something like that, right? And I found Ella Free. Okay, I don't call her Ella Free because Ella and Free, neither one of them are her real names. In fact, most of the people in the big organizations within the targeting community use fake names. They don't use their real names. There's something inherently wrong with that, right? Why not use your real name? Like Karen Stewart used her real name. I use my real name. A lot of people don't use their real names. But also, sometimes people come into the community like Ella, and, you know, they're quick. They get a lot of attention. She was a very pretty woman. The guys, I think, were very attracted to her. Of course, the photos that she had of her were about 20 years old, but she was still very pretty, you know, all those years later. And drew a lot of attention to her. A very nice speaking voice and friendly and all, very cordial, like a very nice speaking voice. And people were attracted to her channel and giving her testimony. Well, all these years later, from 2017, she's gone. Removed all the testimonies, poof, disappeared. We don't even know what happened to them. Some people were fortunate enough to download them and then re-upload them and stuff. The website's gone. No notice to anybody. And no, you know what? Going through a divorce doesn't mean you have to give up all the other stuff. Basically, what it tells me is that she's part of the problem. Because a real targeted person doesn't do that. Right? Real targeted person doesn't upload everybody's testimonies, then start removing them without notification. Disappear. Lie that you're a targeted individual. Flat out lies. Oh, you total flat out lies. But most people don't remember because you don't go back to 2017. You weren't listening to it then. And I spoke to somebody recently who goes back to 2005. And a lot of people don't know that, you know, TJ started out in another state, closed it down and went to another state. And of course, I got ostracized for saying, which one do you belong to? Well, which one do you belong to? You know, if you have a membership with somebody, don't you want to know which one you belong to? Especially since you already paid your dues in one. Does it transfer over? Do you have to start over again? But we won't go there. So anyway, I realized that this person, you know, the Ella, she's been gone from the community and stuff, and they probably need to replace her with another attractive woman, another really pretty girl that that comes on the scene and gains some attention and stuff. So beware, people, about who you deem to be targeted. There are a lot of fakes out there. I can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that I definitely am a targeted person. But there are a lot of people that claim they are. But they're not. They claim that they want to start a nonprofit to buy lands for targeted people. But it will never happen. For a lot of reasons. A lot of reasons. You know, I know so many people in the past that said they were going to do that. It never happened. But everybody started donating money, supporting that person, but it never happened. Because it was never going to happen from the get-go. I'm probably the only one that actually bought the lands, set it up, and nobody wanted to come. Or the people that didn't know how to drive a car. They did drugs. You know, they didn't want to participate. They were fake targeted people, or they had really bad criminal records that I know that targeted people get set up for all kinds of things. But, you know, when somebody owns property, there has to be rules and stuff about it. And there are some things that can't be done, because then it just makes it bad for every other targeted person. So I'm just going to leave it at that. So if you hear of somebody in the community saying that they want to start a nonprofit to buy land for targeted people, think again. It won't happen. It hasn't happened since 2017. It's not going to happen. Every person I've ever heard say that, except for me, has never done it. It's never done it. There are too many liabilities, too many conflicts of interest, too many financial issues, and you bring targeted people together with different ideologies and religions and all kinds of things. You can't even get two targeted people sometimes to live in the same house, let alone share land and farming responsibilities. So let's get real here, folks, okay? So please, I don't mean to burst your bubble and stuff, but we all know how it goes, okay? So anyway, let's get back to justice. What about justice? And of course, this is right after what I read about attorneys as prostitutes in three-piece suits. What about justice? The concept of justice is a high-sounding principle seldom attained among temporal human beings. This is especially true in regard to the various members of the legal criminal fraternity. And I just want to back up. The legal criminal fraternity is this. I'll show you the cover. I don't have to explain it. This is the legal criminal fraternity. Sort of like what's going on here in Jackson County, Kentucky. That's them right there, guys. The legal criminal fraternity. Right there. And this is the book. The Criminal Fraternity, Servants of the Lie. And that's what they do. Lie, 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 lie. And you know, lawyer actually sounds like liar, doesn't it? I don't know. It sounds a lot like liar to me. But anyway, let's continue. Corrupted by their positional power, they're not compelled to equitably dispense justice and often function to subvert it. By virtue of having been delegated authority, the LCF, which is the Legal Criminal Fraternity, LCF, so if I say LCF, that's the abbreviation for Legal Criminal Fraternity. They exalt themselves to a position of rulership where they lord over others in judgment. Yet what the LCF painstakingly maintains is only a pretense of justice. They're pretending. Having wrested power from the working class in order to rule over the producers in society. You know, the producers like you and I, we produce. We're actually producers in society. It is not in their best interest to render godly, righteous judgment for those who could potentially overthrow them. See, because we're actually better than them. There are more of us than them. Just remember that. James 4:12 explains, there is one lawgiver who is able to save and to destroy. Who art thou that judgest another? That one lawgiver is Jesus Christ. He is the antithesis of the LCF and their corrupted version of justice that is often adversarial to the truth, since there is nothing they hate more than the truth. Nothing they hate more than the truth, right? Like the sheriff's department, lie. You know, like the subscriber says, she says, Lorraine, they didn't just twist your words, they completely lied. Unbeknownst to the servants of the light, it is the elect of God who are granted the authority to judge them. Yea, do not know that the saints shall judge the world? And if the world shall be judged by you, are ye unworthy to judge the smallest matter? No, yea, not that we will judge angels? How much more things that pertain to this life? That's Corinthians 6:2-3. To further illustrate the devious notion of the legal criminals judging the righteous, consider the corrupt world of a courtroom judge. First of all, judges acquire their elevated position within the LCF by purchasing their judgeship. Purchasing. Even a lowly traffic court judge attains his or her, more commonly today, her black robe via the funding of sycophant supporters, their fellow colleagues, and business associates, calculating their generosity to return them a favor. And I am so damn glad that my daughter didn't turn into a lawyer or a judge. Yes, that's what she wanted when she was little. I want to be a judge. I want to be a judge. No, you don't want to be a friggin' judge. Although my daughter would be one of those good judges, you know. She'd be one of those good ones. Uncorruptible. The high cost of judgeships. See, this is incredible. The high cost of judgeships can run anywhere from $50,000 to $10 million or more, depending upon the jurisdiction and the title. For example, a Chicago District Court judge can expect to pay $250,000 for the privilege of later earning kickbacks from the various local crime syndicates in that region of the country. Isn't that interesting? So the judge has to pay $250,000 for the privilege of later earning kickbacks from the various local crime syndicates in that region of the country. I wonder who they're paying that to. Do you think they're paying it to the Three Masons? Leave a comment down below. Who are these judges paying? Who? A more ambitious federal judge appointed by the U.S. President on the recommendation of fellow Luciferians will need to dole out $1 million. An even more influential mafia enabler, a Court of Appeals judge, needs a cool $10 million to assume title. And these are conservative dated figures for 1966. More recent data is not available because it's no longer public record. Unfortunately, a good many big businesses, bribes, and drug bust confiscated cocaine heists would be required for an aspiring legal criminal to afford today's inflated judgeship practices. Wow. I wonder how much judges have to pay in rural Kentucky. State and federal judges personally receive a percentage of the fine assessment they pronounce when sentencing their victims to prison or the county jail. Wow. Each kickback can be in the amount of many thousands of dollars at the various levels of the LCF, legal criminal fraternity. Legalized racketeering and extortion, judges also receive kickback payments from jail bonding companies, whom the desperate accused must pay in order to secure their temporary release from jail. Therefore, a strong incentive exists for black robe Masons to set high dollar amount bonds that are excessively larcenous. Secondly, consider the fact that a ceremonially attired satanic high priest, and in parentheses it says judge, a judge is a satanic high priest, is actually a religious figure. All this faithful subjects are told to stand when he enters his temple worshiping the courtroom. This act of submission serves to acknowledge, validate, and legitimize the beast government, and it's a show of veneration to the honorable quote-unquote judge. Don't they do that in those Freemason lodges? Calls those losers like worshipful master? Give me a break. Worshipful master. While they're poking people in the titty and making them walk around with little men walking around with little aprons. I don't know. Maybe I've got it all wrong. All his faithful subjects are told to stand as he enters. This carnal high priest, or high priestess as the case may be, sits physically elevated above those positioned lower in the sanctimonious ceremonial chamber, with all the pomp and regalia of a master of ceremonies about to sacrifice the innocent in a satanic blood ritual. The Masonic hierarchical figure is not only operating in a legal capacity, but also a pagan, religious, ritual capacity, since all judges are a member of Freemasonry, a religion that recognizes Lucifer as God. I don't know. Do you call it a religion, guys? I call it a cult. It's a cult because it performs the rituals, rituals, rituals. In reality, a judge is merely a glorified attorney. As an integral member of the Masonic Brotherhood in letter or in spirit, judges are sympathetic to their fellow Mason cause, which is usually in conflict to the issue of the truth and justice. In the perverse world of the LCF hierarchy, the old crone Masonic judge is treated like a father figure by his lesser subordinates who pay him slavering, reverential deference. To an attorney, Father God, quote-unquote, has been replaced by, quote, Daddy Judge. Female judges are excluded from being full-fledged Masons, but may be associated with Freemasonry through the membership of the all-female Order of the Eastern Star, which is essentially a witch's coven. I've been saying that all along, guys. It's the witchy poos. That's what's on my property. In addition to the inhuman terrain team, I got the witches going on here. A more humorous sight can hardly be imagined than a conference room full of sycophant legal criminals kowtowing to their father figure Masonic Supreme Master. The author has personally witnessed this LCF servitude and offers the reader assurance that it's absolutely hilarious and pathetic. To further exacerbate the unlikelihood of justice prevailing among liars and thieves, typically a judge has political aspirations. Therefore, he or she will tend to be alert to any conflict of interest that his or her decisions may engender among fellow members of the Luciferic order. Judges are thus especially concerned by the impact which their rulings might have in the eyes of their judicial peers, and are mindful of how they will be received in the media, always careful not to commit the ultimate faux pas of appearing to be politically incorrect. As a key player in the brotherhood chain of command, judges are strictly, quote-unquote, in it for the power and glory, and of course, the money, which is granted by the title. On Satan's turf, should justice ever be served among legal criminals, know that it was moved by the hand of the Almighty God. Whenever the accused go before a black-robed high priestess, it is a grave error for them to enter a motion to defend them pro se. Attempting to litigate one's own case without the assistance of a costly attorney would be seen as a threat to the overall profitability of the LCS extortion and racketeering operation. Those who make that mistake will invariably be found guilty by the judge who, because of his loyalty to the Brotherhood, will not allow a non-fraternity outsider to presume expertise and thereby circumvent having to pay the usual extortion fees to the illegal fraternity. Well, I will beg to differ, because I have, in New Jersey, filed pro se many times. And in most instances, the judge has awarded me filing fees, legal fees, and every other thing because of the presentation, even though he would always say that, well, you're a little wordy, you're a little too wordy, maybe you should be a lawyer. Yes, I've had at least 2 judges tell me that I should have been an attorney. God forbid. But no, it's not true. There are a lot of pro se litigants that do prevail and that do win cases. It depends on what it is. It depends on how you presented the evidence and if it's easy to read for the judge. The next player to ponder in the chain of legalized theft is the lawyer or liar. See, this is a man after my own heart. We're on the same page. Whichever pronunciation one prefers, the attorney's primary concern in life is to extort as much money as possible from a steady stream of needy but willing victim clients. As fraternal partners, judges and attorneys work together to extract the maximum dollar amount from their mutual prey, the citizens upon whom they have traditionally fed. To the legal criminal, money is always the issue. Their master, the beast government, requires large amounts of it to support and perpetuate its fraudulent commercial enterprise. The nebulous concept of due process is of concern to the fraternity criminals only when it serves their own interests. For example, intimidation, harassment, and terrorizing citizens into subservience to them. As ironic as it seems, in the mind of an LCS Luciferian, one's innocence of a crime is irrelevant as proof for reaching a verdict of not guilty. The illusion of justice is skillfully crafted by the diabolical judicial process of extracting tribute money from the victims, scared guilty by the intimidating tactics of a shameless legal mafia. Extortion is the primary motivation for a well-armed band of LCS robbers who vigorously pursue their own brands of justice from a barrel of a gun. You want to go to jail? This efficiently takes place in order to support the vast infrastructure. I can't stand that friggin' word, guys. Infrastructure. You go to every one of these websites, they collaborate with the infrastructure. They support the infrastructure and collaborate. The information sharing, collaborations. This efficiently takes place in order to support the vast infrastructure of their power monopoly that extends from the upper reaches of the political realm all the way down to the lowly prison guard. Hence, at all levels of the legalized extortion and racketeering operation, the interests of citizen victims are continually subverted and compromised. Because the legal criminal fraternity serves their master Satan, there's an inherent conflict of interest in their pursuit of justice. Well, that's a mouthful, huh? Since their loyalty is wholly with the beast, therefore they must maintain a good working relationship with their fellow Masonic Luciferians. Otherwise, the predators would devour each other. C.S. Lewis in the Screw Tape Letters had this to say, quote, "Bad angels, like bad men, are entirely practical. They have two motives. The first is a fear of punishment. Their second motive is a kind of hunger. I feign that devils can, in a spiritual sense, eat one another and us. Even in human life, we have seen the passion to dominate, almost to digest, one's fellow, to make his whole intellectual and emotional life merely an extension of one's own. Does this sound like the legal criminal fraternity?" The fourth component members of the LCF, working together in concert, seldom challenge each other's brief authority as they go about their business of raping and pillaging the citizenry. This is so because if Satan cast out Satan, he's divided against himself. How shall then his kingdom stand? Matthew 12:26. Yet, as prophecy foretells, his kingdom is tottering and will eventually collapse, because the lesser wicked individuals among the LCF fear their more evil and powerful Masonic brothers of higher status within the satanic pyramidal power structure. The lesser are therefore careful to submit to a more depraved spirit that would otherwise overwhelm and engulf them. Even an ostensibly courageous attorney fears the lethal duo of gun-toting police backed by the black-robed judge, and will seldom, if ever, attempt to bring litigation for heinous police crimes committed against a criminally assaulted victim. In realizing both the futility and the backlash arising from his Masonic constituents, attorneys consequently opt to, quote, pretend advocacy, unquote, in order to extract the customary extortion fees from their needy clients. Bruised and battered, their trusting client victim is momentarily afforded the luxury of basking in the glowing illusion that justice will prevail. Their attorney, savior, quote unquote, will ride a white horse into the courtroom and rescue them from the legal bad men. However, that fantasy is soon shattered upon the shocking realization that the servants of the lie, all of whom are members in good standing with the Luciferian Freemasonry Brotherhood, stick together. Legal criminals do not usually indict themselves. They cannot successfully challenge the entity that created them, that is, the beast. Regardless of who they may pretend to be, they are still wards of the state. If this were not true, how then could Satan's kingdom temporarily stand? In today's NWO society, it not only stands, but it's flourishing. But what about justice? Practically speaking, it has no place in a modern court of law. Instead, only a twisted and perverse version of lawlessness prevails, a warped facsimile, where human freedom and dignity are sold for a price. The courtroom barter system virtually guarantees that those who can afford to purchase justice, quote unquote, need not bear the full consequences of their evil deeds, at least not in this lifetime. Typically, the only crime that the accused poor are guilty of committing is not having enough money to afford a legal prostitute. I guess that, a legal prostitute attorney. Oh, we've got these great words for these people: legal, prostitute, attorney, gift card whores. I mean, come on. Consequently, a large majority of those incarcerated in county jails, state penitentiaries, and the Federal Bureau of Prisons are the indigent poor, meaning the most notorious criminals of all. Representing the greatest threat to your health, safety, and freedom, the legal fraternity remain at large with absolute power and control to dominate your life. Liberty and pursuit of happiness. I thought that was the end of the sentence. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Justice, when dealing with legal criminals, there's only the pretense of justice. Now, the next paragraph or section of this chapter, I'll save for another time. It's called Crime Pays Off Big for the Legal Criminal Fraternity. So we'll end on that note. Men and women, boys and girls, please leave a comment down below. And I hope everybody's doing well today. And I'll show you the book again. Oh, let me show you the back of the book. Let me show you the back. Who are the real criminals? They masquerade as your friends, but are your deadly enemies. Police, politicians, judges, attorneys. Learn the truth that the criminal fraternity hopes you will never discover. Okay? And this is the writer of the book, right here. Okay. I'm going to sign off for now. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm going to go take care of my chickie boos and kitties.